Chapter 1. I was the company's top salesman, but I never clocked in or out, and I rarely showed my face in the office. 2/3 of the employees had never even seen me. Yet, I had single-handedly propelled our sales to number 1 in the industry, leaving everyone else in the dust. Who would have thought that on the day year-end bonuses were handed out, the new sales director would fire me, citing the bad luck of me stepping into the office with my left foot first. When I demanded to know on what grounds, he sneered. On the grounds that I'm the future master of this company, you just got lucky and closed a few big deals, all thanks to the company's client list. Let me tell you, Sincere Sterling, whoever the company decides to throw its resources behind becomes the top salesman. I laughed. They only saw me not punching a clock. They never saw the endless days and nights I spent on the road, painstakingly maintaining client relationships. The truth is, in this industry, people trust Sincere Sterling, not the company's brand. I immediately called my wife. Since when did you get a new husband behind my back? On the other end of the line, Victoria Bishop's voice was laced with confusion. Sincere? What are you talking about? Before she could finish, Ethan Donovan snatched the phone from my hand. His tone instantly shifted to one of gentle grievance. Victoria, you have to come quick. Sincere is causing a scene at the office. I heard Victoria's voice immediately fill with concern. I'm on my way. Click. The line went dead. A wave of relief washed over me. It seemed my wife was still worried about me. This Ethan Donovan character was probably just trying to stir up trouble between us. I stared at Ethan and said coldly, "Do you have any idea this company belongs to my wife? What right do you have to fire me?" Ethan let out a confident, derisive laugh. "Of course I know this is Victoria's company. In fact, she's the one who hired me as the sales director with a handsome salary." He leaned in closer, his voice low and full of smug pride. "Victoria and I have been childhood sweethearts for 20 years. You're just a little salesman living off her charity. What makes you think you can compete with me?" Up close, I realized Ethan looked familiar. I'd run into him once while meeting a client. He was working as a gigolo in a nightclub, being kept by a rich old woman, spinelessly nestling in her arms as he poured her drinks. How could Victoria possibly fall for a man like that? The commotion had soon drawn the attention of the entire office. Employees gathered around, pointing and whispering. Who is that? Daring to challenge Director Donovan? I don't know him. Does he work here? I've never seen him before. I think that's the legendary top salesman Sincere Sterling, the elusive one. Oh, it's him. What's he so arrogant about? He's just riding Ms. Bishop's coattails. Haven't you heard? Director Donovan and Ms. Bishop have been inseparable lately. They're incredibly close. Totally, I saw Director Donovan feeding Ms. Bishop cake the other day. Exactly. I'd say Director Donovan is our future meal ticket. This Sincere guy is a nobody. Every word was like a needle pricking my ears. The triumphant look on Ethan's face grew more intense. He raised his voice, as if making a deliberate announcement for everyone to hear. Sincere, Victoria has a kind heart, so she let you have a meal ticket. Did you really start thinking you were somebody? Gotten addicted to being a freeloader, have you? Refusing to leave? I'm telling you, you're getting out of here today. My heart sank inch by inch, but my face remained impassive. I stated word for word, everyone here knows full well the profits I've generated for this company over the years. I am one of the company's founders and a major shareholder. Unless I choose to leave myself, no one has the right to order me around. My words were firm and resonant. The surrounding chatter died down. The color drained from Ethan's face for a moment, but just then, a newly hired intern suddenly stepped forward. She pointed a finger at my nose and burst out laughing. "Ah, you're quite the storyteller, a founder, a major shareholder. How can you be so shameless? Didn't you just get lucky closing a few big deals by selling your body and drinking with those rich old women? Besides, he has most of the company's client data. Of course he's the top salesman." Many employees started to chime in. "Exactly, if you gave that data to us, we could do it too." A truly capable person is someone like Director Donovan, who is willing to lead us all to success. Her speech was full of righteous passion. I trembled with anger, glaring coldly at the intern. Every single one of those clients was earned by me, one trip at a time, one drink at a time. I scanned everyone present, my gaze finally landing on the intern and Ethan Donovan. Only incompetent people resort to slandering the success of others. My words made the intern's face turn pale. She looked like she wanted to argue. But just then the sharp, rapid click of high heels echoed through the office. I looked toward the sound and saw my wife, Victoria Bishop, striding in like a storm. I started to walk toward her. To my shock, Ethan beat me to it, smoothly pulling her into a half embrace, their posture incredibly intimate. Seeing this, I froze in my tracks. Victoria stormed toward me, and a crisp, loud slap landed squarely on my face. "Sincere, what is your problem?" Victoria pointed at my nose and shrieked, "Why are you bullying Ethan? Who do you think you are?" I clutched my cheek, looking at her in disbelief. In that moment, even a fool like me would understand. Everything the employees had said, it was all true. Victoria had been cheating on me for a long time. A white-hot rage shot up from the pit of my stomach to the top of my head. I stared at her, my voice trembling. "Victoria, we are husband and wife. Are you sure you want to burn this bridge for him? I worked my fingers to the bone to build this company for you. Even if you don't credit my achievements, you can't deny my hard work. Is this how you repay me?" Before Victoria could speak, Ethan, nestled in her arms, spoke first. He looked up at me with the air of a victor. "Sincere, you just don't understand women. What a woman needs most is companionship, warmth. Did you know that?" I looked at his smug face and felt sick to my stomach. After hearing Ethan's words, Victoria gazed at him with adoring eyes. But when she turned back to me, her expression was instantly filled with disgust. "Sincere, did you hear that? Ethan is 100 times better than you. He's gentle, considerate, and he can help me manage the company and make money. He's 100 times better than a useless bum like you who's never home and just messes around outside." Useless? I laughed, overcome with rage. Back then, she was running this tiny startup with just the two of us, on the verge of bankruptcy. I threw myself into it, handling sales, negotiating with clients, smiling through endless dinners and drinks. I ran myself ragged, drank until my stomach was ruined. The company's revenue grew exponentially, transforming from a failing workshop into a well-known player in the industry. And her, Victoria Bishop, she was the one who tearfully pursued me, swearing she would marry no one else. Moved by her pleas, I turned down offers from top-tier firms and willingly stayed at her small company. While I was out day and night building a comfortable life for her, she was getting together with her dear childhood friend. All my sacrifices, in her eyes, were now just things she was entitled to. My not being home even became her excuse for cheating. I looked at the disgusting pair before me, and my heart turned to ice. In front of everyone, I questioned Victoria, "Have you forgotten that I single-handedly brought in almost every client this company has? Aren't you afraid that if I leave, the company will go under?" The moment I finished speaking, not just Victoria and Ethan, but even my colleagues from the sales department burst into laughter. They had long resented me, the guy who never came to the office but held the top salesman spot. "Ha ha ha, who does he think he is? The company will stop running without you? You think too highly of yourself." "Exactly. Miss Bishop has Director Donovan now. Who needs you?" Victoria joined in with a cold laugh, her eyes dripping with sarcasm. "Sincere, get it straight. You're just a salesman, and soon you won't even be that. I have Ethan now. He's much better than you. You're nothing but a discarded pawn I no longer want." I was utterly disillusioned. "Fine, so be it." I looked at her and said calmly, "In that case, let's get a divorce. I'll grant you your wish and make way for you and this other man." Ethan looked as if he'd just heard the funniest joke in the world. He contemptuously pulled a marriage certificate from his briefcase and threw it in my face. "Take a good look and see who the other man really is." I picked up the booklet from the floor. I opened it and saw, to my horror, their marriage certificate. My mind went completely blank. Victoria said triumphantly. That's right. The marriage certificate I had with you was a fake. It was just a way to keep you tied down, to make you willingly work like a dog for me and earn more money. Now that the company is on the right track and I have Ethan to help me, you're useless. There was a hint of relief in her voice. None of my assets have anything to do with you. You can get lost now. I wanted to tear this pair of degenerates to shreds. Suppressing my fury, I looked at Victoria and asked, one word at a time, if the marriage was fake, the shares are real, right? I'm also a shareholder. If you want me to leave, then liquidate my shares and pay me out. Considering my stake, my departure would take a huge chunk out of Victoria's company. But Victoria just raised an eyebrow and sneered. Shares? Who said you have any shares? Sincere, are you delusional? Those documents were just things I tricked you into signing to mess with you. But considering you've been my workhorse for so many years, I'll show some pity. She took a set of keys from her purse and tossed them on the floor. That old rundown shoebox apartment we bought when we got married, take it as your severance. Now get out. I nodded. Good. Very good. I turned to leave this disgusting place. Wait, Victoria suddenly stopped me. That 9-figure deal you're currently negotiating, hand it over to Ethan, and leave all your client files behind. Otherwise, I'll sue you for stealing company trade secrets and have you thrown in jail. I had no desire to entangle myself with them any further. I took a USB drive from my briefcase and tossed it over my shoulder without looking back. Ethan and the sales staff erupted in a thunderous cheer. It was as if my departure would cause a shower of riches to rain down upon them. They had no idea that without me personally there, the clients wouldn't sign anything. I looked at the cheering crowd, then took one last look at Victoria. Victoria Bishop, I wish your company a speedy bankruptcy. Then I turned to Ethan. An incompetent, ignorant fool like you is fit to be a sales director? Just wait. You're going to run this company into the ground. Ethan immediately put on a magnanimous and compassionate expression. He put his arm around Victoria's shoulder and said softly, Victoria, don't be angry. He's just been fired and is lashing out. It's all nonsense. Victoria, however, looked at me with an air of arrogance and spat out a threat. Sincere, you're just jealous. Ethan is 100 times more capable than you. Everyone just wait and see how a real top salesman is made. I smiled. Fine. I was very interested to see how this incompetent empty suit she'd hired at great expense would become the future top salesman. Victoria handed over complete control of the company's sales operations to Ethan. As for herself, she went back to her old routine, checking employee attendance logs and then spending her days flaunting her relationship on social media. She had probably long forgotten that the only reason she could move from a 300-square-foot rundown dump to her current 2,000-square-foot luxury condo, the only reason she could spend exorbitant amounts of money on useless luxury goods just to display in her home, was all thanks to me, Sincere Sterling. Built one drink, one contract, one deal at a time. I gave myself a week off. That week my phone nearly exploded. It was a constant barrage of calls from headhunters and CEOs of major corporations. They all made incredibly tempting offers, desperate for me to join them. Among them was Victoria's biggest rival and the true leader in the industry, Shenghua Group. The president of Shenghua Group, Helena Marshall, called me personally 3 times. The terms she offered were impossible to refuse. Sincere, come to Shenghua. I'll give you 50% of the group's shares. You won't be my employee. You'll be my partner. You and I will run the whole of Shenghua. I accepted Helena's invitation, but I never expected that on my first day at Shenghua, Victoria would show up at the front door with Ethan spoiling for a fight. Helena was in the lobby with all the company executives, lined up to give me a grand welcome ceremony. Before she could even start her welcome speech, Victoria's shrill yelling echoed into the building. Sincere Sterling, you ungrateful backstabber, haven't you had enough of being a freeloader? You deliberately jumped ship to my rival just to humiliate me and steal my business, didn't you? She pointed her finger at my nose, screaming like a shrew. Ethan stood beside her, adding his own snide remarks. Sincere, you should know better than to burn your bridges. For a grown man to be so ruthless, you have no shame. I smiled calmly. Ms. Bishop, Director Donovan, if I recall correctly, you said that whoever the company throws its resources behind becomes the top salesman. I'm just a useless piece of trash, a discarded pawn you kicked out. Now that I'm gone, what threat could I possibly pose to you? So why are you two so nervous? My words made Victoria and Ethan's faces turn incredibly ugly. Just then, Helena Marshall stepped forward. She was tall, with a commanding presence. A single glance from her was enough to diminish Victoria's bluster by a third. Ms. Bishop, I am currently holding a welcome ceremony for Shenghua Group's new CEO president. Are you here to offer your congratulations? If you're here to cause a scene, then I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave. Helena smiled faintly and gestured toward a line of tall, burly security guards in black suits by the entrance. The security team I've hired is also top tier. After all, unlike some people, I don't have such poor judgment that I'd mistake a fake for a pearl. She paused, then added, Oh, and by the way, we don't have so many rigid rules at Shenghua Group. Sales staff are not required to punch a clock. As long as they generate profit for the company, I don't care where they spend their time. Every one of Helena's words was like a slap across Victoria's face. Victoria's face turned the color of liver. She was trembling with rage but didn't dare to actually cause a scene on Shenghua's turf. In the end, all she could do was throw out one last threat. CEO president? Him? He's just a salesman. Helena, don't get too cocky. My company will thrive without him. We're about to sign a 9-figure deal. You just wait and be jealous with that. She seemed to feel she'd regained a shred of dignity. She grabbed Ethan and stormed away in a fluster. Watching their retreating backs, I turned to Helena and said, That 9-figure deal? They won't be able to sign it. Don't worry. Helena looked at me, not asking for any explanation. She simply smiled and said, I trust you. After joining Shenghua, it only took me 1 week to sign 3 separate deals, each worth tens of millions in profit. Many of my old clients, upon hearing I had moved to Shenghua, contacted me on their own initiative. They were willing to pay penalties to terminate their contracts with Victoria's company and sign with me instead. Dinners, meetings, one after another. Shenghua Group's performance skyrocketed at a terrifying rate. Meanwhile, things were reportedly not going well for Victoria. After Ethan took over the sales department, he hadn't closed a single deal. He had impatiently called every contact on the client list I'd left behind, managing to offend more than half of them. They either hung up on him immediately or asked one simple question, Where's Sincere? I heard that after facing constant rejection, he started taking his frustrations out on the employees. Ethan began to obsessively monitor attendance and performance metrics. 1 minute late meant a 500 deduction. If you failed to meet the impossible sales targets he set, not only did you lose your base salary, but you ended up owing the company money. For a time, the office was filled with panic and resentment. In just 2 weeks, 2/3 of the sales department quit. Even Shenghua Group received several resumes from employees at Victoria's company. Victoria finally seemed to realize that money was only flowing out of the company account, not in, and the well was about to run dry. She started to panic. One day, an old client of mine, Mr. Windsor, invited me to dinner. Mr. Windsor was the biggest partner in our industry, with the highest demand. Previously, a single order from him was enough to support more than half of Victoria's company. When he heard I had moved to Shenghua, he didn't hesitate for a second. He immediately terminated all his partnerships with Victoria's company. Then he called me personally to arrange this dinner, wanting to sign a new, even larger contract with me. And this contract was the very same 9-figure deal Victoria had been boasting about in front of Shenghua's office. Mr. Windsor and I were in a private room, having a great conversation. After a few drinks, the contract details were more or less finalized. Just then, the door to the room was violently thrown open. Victoria and Ethan burst in, their faces contorted with rage. It was clear they had been having a rough time lately. Victoria had dark circles under her eyes, her face devoid of its former radiance. Ethan also looked haggard, his hair a mess. Victoria rushed at me like a madwoman. "Sincere, you despicable creep, you stole my deal." She hurled abuse at me, her words foul and unbearable. Ethan, on the other hand, immediately plastered on a fawning smile, sidled up to Mr. Windsor, and personally poured him a drink. "Mr. Windsor, did we do something to displease you? You're a magnanimous man. Please give us another chance. We promise to show you our utmost sincerity then." He pointed at me and began to slander me. "Mr. Windsor, don't let him fool you. He's just a social climbing freeloader who's an expert at cutting corners. A man like him, who steals business from others and has no business ethics, is not to be trusted." But who was Mr. Windsor? He was a veteran shark of the business world, who'd been navigating these waters for decades. He didn't give Ethan the time of day. He set down his glass and looked at them coldly. "First, I never signed a formal contract with your company, so there's no such thing as sincere stealing a deal. Second, who I choose to partner with is my decision, and it's not for you to dictate. Third, I was the one who actively sought Sincere out. In this industry, I do business with him, the man. Wherever he is, that's where my business is. I have complete confidence in him." Mr. Windsor's words were like daggers to the heart. The color drained from Victoria and Ethan's faces, leaving them deathly pale. But they still wouldn't give up. Victoria forced a smile that was uglier than a grimace and said to Mr. Windsor, "Mr. Windsor, we were in the wrong this time. We apologize. Look, even if business doesn't work out, goodwill remains. We've worked together for so many years. Please, just give us one more chance. Let us treat you to a meal, all right?" They were trying to leverage their past relationship to get another shot. After all, at the dinner table, over drinks, when inhibitions are lowered, many things can change. Mr. Windsor frowned. I discreetly passed him a glass of detoxifying tea, signaling that the decision was his. Perhaps out of consideration for their many years of past partnership, Mr. Windsor finally relented. "Fine. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, same place." Victoria and Ethan's eyes lit up, and they thanked him profusely. Annoyed by their chatter, Mr. Windsor waved his hand. "All right, that's enough. Go on, get out. Don't disturb my meeting with President Sterling." Only then did Victoria seem to notice that I had been sitting there the whole time, silent, watching them like a play. She felt an overwhelming sense of humiliation and shame, glaring at me with a look of pure hatred. Before I could even process the meaning behind her stare, Ethan pulled her away, and they scurried out of the room. After seeing Mr. Windsor off, I was a bit drunk and my head was spinning. I went back to that so-called marital home. Unexpectedly, as I reached the door, I saw an uninvited guest. Victoria was standing there, her makeup exquisitely done. When she saw me, her eyes lit up and she immediately rushed over. She had a look of grievance on her face, her eyes welling with tears, on the verge of crying. "Sincere, don't you love me anymore? Why didn't you give me any face at the dinner today? Didn't you used to dote on me the most?" Looking at her feigned act, I just felt a wave of nausea. I sneered and retorted, "Dote on you? When you slapped me in front of the entire company for your precious brother, did you think about where I was supposed to put my face? When you tricked me with a fake marriage certificate and played me for a fool, did you ever think about whether I was hurting?" Seeing that reason wasn't on her side, Victoria switched tactics. Her body went limp as she tried to fall into my arms. This was her old trick. Whenever she acted weak and coquettish, I would soften. But now, I just felt disgusted. I sidestepped, and she missed, grabbing the railing to keep from falling. I looked at her, my eyes icy cold. "Miss Bishop, please have some self-respect. I don't take back the trash, thank you." My words stung Victoria, and her face went white. But she quickly recovered with a triumphant smile. She pointed at the door behind me and said, "Sincere, stop pretending. If you really had no feelings for me, why would you still keep our marital home? You're still thinking of me. You still love me, don't you?" Only then did I remember. I had been so busy with work that I had completely forgotten about asking the real estate agent to sell the apartment. I looked at her self-important face and told her the truth. "You're overthinking it. I put this place on the market a while ago. I just came back today to pack my things for the handover tomorrow." The smile on Victoria's face instantly froze. She looked at me in utter disbelief. You're selling our home? Sincere, you cold-hearted man. You used to say you'd love me and cherish me forever. It was all lies. I was once again shocked by her shamelessness and double standards. I couldn't be bothered to waste another word on her. Engaging with someone like her would only lower my IQ. I walked right past her and left, heading to the new Riverview luxury condo I had purchased. The next evening, I happened to have a dinner meeting with a client at the same restaurant where Mr. Windsor was meeting Victoria and her crew. I ran into them again, and this time there was one more person. The intern who had once stood in the office and accused me of selling my body. Just as I arrived at the restaurant entrance, Mr. Windsor's car pulled up. I was about to go over and greet him, but the intern, like a dog guarding its food, darted forward and shoved me aside. "Get away from us, you creep," she hissed, glaring at me. Mr. Windsor's brows furrowed in displeasure. I gave him a helpless smile, signaling that it was fine. The intern didn't notice Mr. Windsor's expression. Instead, she fawningly led him to a table in the main dining hall. I inwardly laughed. Conducting business, and they didn't even book a private room? Just a table in the lobby? What kind of move was that? A moment later, a tardy Victoria and Ethan appeared. They walked straight to Mr. Windsor's table and sat down. Victoria imperiously told the intern, "Lily, go order the food. We need to have a good talk with Mr. Windsor." I saw Mr. Windsor's hand, which had been reaching for the menu, pause mid-air before he silently lowered it. My client hadn't arrived yet, so I wasn't in a rush to go to my private room. I found a discreet spot on the second-floor corridor and settled in to watch the show. Downstairs, as soon as Victoria and Ethan sat down, they eagerly started pouring wine for Mr. Windsor. They didn't even wait for the food to arrive before getting straight to the point. Victoria began boasting about their company's recent brand upgrades. Ethan, beside her, recited their product advantages like he was reading from a script, but it was obvious that everything they said was just empty, unappealing jargon from a brochure. Mr. Windsor looked extremely impatient, shifting restlessly in his chair. Victoria didn't notice and kept pushing wine on him. "Mr. Windsor, you have to try this wine. It's a private vintage from abroad. I brought it especially for you." Mr. Windsor finally snapped. He slammed his glass down on the table with a loud thud. "Ms. Bishop, I haven't had a single bite of food, and you're already trying to get me drunk enough to send me to the hospital?" His voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for the surrounding tables to hear. Ethan and Victoria were visibly stunned. They finally realized they had been far too aggressive. The two of them began apologizing profusely. "We're so sorry, Mr. Windsor. We were too eager. Please don't be angry, please." Just then, the intern, Lily, returned from ordering. She had a look on her face that said, "You can count on me," and gave Victoria and Ethan a firm nod. Victoria and Ethan breathed a collective sigh of relief. But when the waiter began bringing out the dishes one by one, not just Mr. Windsor, but Victoria and Ethan as well, were petrified. 3 cold dishes, cucumber salad, wood ear mushroom salad, and vermicelli noodle salad. 1 hot dish, scrambled eggs with tomato, and 1 meat dish, fried chicken with ketchup. The intern, meanwhile, was enthusiastically beckoning Mr. Windsor. "Mr. Windsor, please eat, these are all my favorite dishes. I'm telling you, the scrambled eggs with tomato at this place are to die for." Mr. Windsor's face had turned so dark it looked like ink might drip from it. His good manners were the only thing stopping him from flipping the table and storming out. He looked at Victoria and said with a humorless smile, "Miss Bishop, your employees certainly have a sense of humor." Incredibly, Victoria didn't pick up on the sarcasm. She actually thought he was praising her company's atmosphere. She immediately replied with an obsequious smile, Yes, Mr. Windsor. We often eat simple, home-style meals together. We're all like a family. The atmosphere is very relaxed. The intern was even more clueless. She started digging in herself, her mouth full as she blurted out, "Mr. Windsor, you have no idea. Our company can barely afford to pay base salaries right now. Ms. Bishop said we had to cut costs, so I carefully selected these dishes. But I read online that big shots like you are tired of fancy food and prefer kids' food. If you like the food, maybe you could do us a huge favor and give us another chance with that." She picked up a piece of fried chicken, gave Mr. Windsor a playful wink, and whined, "Mr. W., please." Ethan wasn't idle either. He was busy serving food to Mr. Windsor. The plate of vermicelli salad was slippery and difficult to handle. To show his sincerity, he actually stood up, stretched his arm across the table, and shakily placed a clump of noodles into Mr. Windsor's bowl. The scene was as comical as it was cringeworthy. Up on the second floor, I was about to burst out laughing. Mr. Windsor finally exploded. He shot up from his chair. Enough he looked at the plate of tomato eggs and fried chicken, then at the three oddballs in front of him. "Miss Bishop, I was originally willing to give you another chance. But it seems to me now that without Sincere Sterling, your company has some fatal flaws and doesn't seem to value this opportunity very much. Since that's the case, let's just forget it. You don't need to contact me again." With that, Mr. Windsor turned and walked away without a backward glance. He left Victoria, Ethan, and the intern staring at each other, completely dumbfounded. Suddenly, Victoria stood up and, one by one, started flipping the plates of food onto the intern's face, screaming curses at her.
"What kind of moron are you? Ordering this for a client dinner? Do you have any idea you've ruined my company?"
The intern, not to be outdone, flipped the whole table over and started mocking Victoria and Ethan. "And you think you're any better? You kicked Sincere out when he was here and replaced him with this incompetent fool of a director, telling us to witness the birth of a real top salesman. And what's the result? I work my ass off for a month, don't earn a single penny, and end up owing the company money. I'm going to the labor board to report you." After her tirade, the intern even grabbed the leftover fried chicken and left. The show was over. My client had arrived. I went downstairs to greet him, and just as I was about to lead him to our private room, Victoria called out to me. Her eyes were red and filled with tears. She glared at me, her voice trembling with rage. "Sincere, you must be feeling pretty smug right now, aren't you?" I looked at her, not even bothering to waste an expression on her, turned around and led my client into our room. After that dinner, Victoria's company completely collapsed. Losing Mr. Windsor, their biggest client, caused an immediate break in their cash flow. They couldn't pay their employees, who left in droves. Suppliers showed up demanding payment, blocking the company's entrance. In just one short month, the company I had poured my heart and soul into declared bankruptcy. Meanwhile, Shenghua Group, under Helena and me, was unstoppable. We successfully became one of the world's top 100 enterprises with a bright future ahead. I was filled with motivation every day, enjoying the immense satisfaction of my career success. When I drove past Victoria's now defunct company, the sign had been taken down, making the place look particularly desolate. The roll-up door was shut tight, with only a few debt collectors still stubbornly waiting outside. I never expected that Victoria, with her sharp eyes, would come rushing out of a small convenience store across the street. She threw herself in front of my car like a madwoman. She was so thin she was almost unrecognizable, her face sallow, her eyes filled with desperation and insanity. She banged on my car window, crying and screaming at me. "Sincere, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. The company can't survive. Without you, please come back. Please, if you come back, I can forget everything that happened." Listening to her utterly shameless words, I found it laughable. I rolled down the window and pushed her away. "Miss Bishop, you're mistaken. I'm just a humble salesman. I couldn't possibly accept such a grand honor. You should stop putting me on a pedestal." Seeing that I was unmoved, she threw out a new offer. "Sincere, if you come back, we'll get married. I'll give you the company. No, I'll give you everything. All the shares will be yours." I laughed. I looked at her as if she were a clown performing a clumsy act. "Victoria, I came by today because I wanted to see what a wreck you stupid fool, had made of the company I personally built. It seems the result is even more spectacular than I imagined. I used to love you, so I was willing to give you everything. But now, I don't love you anymore. In fact, I find a cheating, foolish, and clueless woman like you utterly repulsive. Do you really think there's a single thing about you now that I would find even remotely appealing?" My words completely shattered her final fantasy. Victoria stood as if struck by lightning, trembling all over before collapsing to the ground. She finally understood that I was truly never coming back. Later, I heard some news about her. That Ethan Donovan character ran off with the last of her money after the company went bankrupt. When Victoria went to find him, she discovered he wasn't some elite professional back from overseas. He had returned to his old trade, working as a gigolo in a nightclub. What shattered her completely was discovering she was pregnant, and during a prenatal checkup, she was also diagnosed with an incurable STD. The next time I saw her, it was on a local news report about her end. The report said a woman with the surname Bishop had stormed into a high-end club and gotten into a violent altercation with a male employee. They had attacked each other, screaming vicious curses, each blaming the other for all their misfortunes. In the end, Victoria Bishop died at the scene from dozens of stab wounds, and Ethan Donovan was sentenced to life in prison for intentional homicide. I turned off the morning news on the television. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, filling the entire living room. Helena Marshall walked out of the kitchen with an elegant breakfast and handed it to me. "What are you watching so intently?" I took the sandwich she had made and took a bite. "Nothing. Just watching a comedy." Outside the window, a brand new day was dawning.